country. The beautiful thing about the dawah has a 3-pronged approach. What do I mean by 3-pronged approach? So when you are giving dawah, first you are learning about dawah, you're learning about Islam, so your iman goes up. Yes, number 1. When you give dawah to the non-Muslims, the non-Muslims come to Islam. So that's the 2nd prong. So first prong, your own iman goes up. 2nd prong is the non-Muslim comes to Islam. The 3rd prong is someone who's a Muslim, who's not practicing or he's not part of Islam, he looks at you and looks at your character and he's like, wait a minute, why is Abdullah, who I grew up with, or Fatima, and maybe at one time we weren't praying, we weren't practicing, and now I see John and Cynthia have become Muslim as well. And what happened here? Like, I'm born a Muslim, and why am I not asking about Islam? So even the Muslims that are wavering, they start to now want to learn about Islam. So the dawah is very holistic. So it helps you, helps the new Muslim, and it helps the Muslims as well. Just my humble advice. Obviously, we have to give dawah to the Muslims as well, but that dawah is a bit more technical, more detailed. So yeah, that's just one to add to that. Okay, so now we learned a whole bunch of stuff about characters. We learned about what the characters of a da'i is, why the dawah, who should we call to. So one of the things we want to emphasize on this today, if you forget every single thing, let's say today was like a complete blur, blah 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 blah, everybody's like blah 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 blah, and then in the end, like, what was the topic about? I don't get it. I forgot. What was the main element? I want to just leave this with you, is to call to Tawheed. And wallahi, if you just do that, your dawah will be simple, will be very powerful. Okay? All right. So, however, that being said, why does the dawah fall? Why doesn't it work? Okay? So, I'm going to bring this thing back up again here. Okay? So, I'm just going to put this here again. And I'm going to clean this. Hopefully, we'll get cleaned. Okay. Oh, wrong pen again. I'm not a good artist or a graphic guy, so mind my... Obviously, many of you
Recording in progress.
Hopefully tell what this is, right? It's a tree. If somebody doesn't know. Okay. What I want to take away from this is this. Okay? Why the dawah doesn't work? Why does it fail? Why is it that every time we're giving dawah, and I'm like, he doesn't get it? Why he doesn't get it? I'm explaining this. It's so logical. It's so like systematic. Why doesn't he get it? So here's some humble advice, yeah? Everybody can see this is a tree? Can everybody see? Okay, alhamdulillah. Okay. So I'll give you one of my personal examples. I used to work for a corporation, and I had this one guy. I used to give dawah to him on a regular basis. We'd go for coffees, we'd go for dinners, we would do all kinds of different things, but my intention was always to give him dawah. So what happened is the dawah started in 2017, I think it started, 2017. And we talked for like until 2021, I believe. Okay, for years we talked. So we talked about what? We talked about haduds, we talked about cutting hands, we talked about hijab, we talked about just anything and everything we can discuss in Islam, we talked about it. Okay? So here's what I want to take away from that example. So imagine, so the scholars say there's something that's called shubahat and shahawat. What's the difference? Can anybody tell us? What's the difference between shubahats and shahawats? Yes, sister. You want to put your hands up? Doubtful, yeah? Okay, good. What's shahawat? Whims and desires. Hawa, people of the hawa. So the people of the desire, let's say if you are someone who is a Muslim and is astray, let's say you're drinking, right? May Allah protect us. But maybe there's a Muslim brother who's drinking and he's going against the Sharia, he's doing khamr. Can at some point in his life, can he rationalize intuitively and say that drinking is bad? Maybe his liver's dying, maybe he's becoming financially broke, maybe his family is being upset with him. So what I'm saying is what the scholars say, that shahwats can be curbed by yourself. Yes? But shubuhat, doubts, cannot be curbed by yourself. For that, you need knowledge. So what is that link with this? So what happens is, majority of the people have shubuhat. They have doubts, or they have questions. Okay? We'll talk about those questions. Some are genuine, some are disingenuous. We can talk about that later. But the question, here's what I want you to walk away with this. So each one of these leaves on a tree is a shubha, is a doubt, or is a question. Okay? So imagine you discuss one question that they have. Somebody asks, and then you answer that. Check, done. Then he asks another question and say, check. Then he says another question and say, check. So then he goes to a different branch, maybe talks about cutting hands, check. Then you talk about punishment with had, check. Then he starts talking about hijab. Then you talk about that and says, check. So what's happening is, this person will continue to ask questions. Okay? So here's the example. Imagine you're wearing yellow glasses and you see this wall, which is white. What tint would that wall be? Yellow. If you're wearing green glasses, what tint will be the wall? Green. So based on what glasses you've put on is what you're going to see on the other side. So when you're talking about shubhat, doubts, on questions, they're asking you questions based on what they're seeing the world through, what lenses they're using to observe the world. So as Muslims, our worldview is Islam, and someone else's worldview is not Islam. So he's always going to look at it this way from what he thinks is right or wrong. So what's happening is these questions are going on and on and on. So let's say if you knocked off this whole branch, he'll just jump to another branch. And then you go on that branch, he'll go to a third branch. And there's millions of branches he can go into, or thousands and hundreds and thousands of branches he can go to. And then all these doubts and shubhats. Here's the question I want to ask you. If you cut the foundation, okay, of the tree, what happens to the tree? What happens? The tree falls. So the example I want you to share with you, just because we're limited on time, we'll do a role play, but really what we do in a role play is we show you why the dawah fails. The reason that the dawah fails, and I'll give you an example. We can get one brother. We can get you to come up here, brother. Yourself. Yes, please. Yeah, anybody. It doesn't matter. Yeah, come on up. So this is an actual MSA dawah. You're in university, and somebody's name is John, and they're asking questions. And you're the Muslim. Yeah, somebody's John, and I'm playing the role, okay? Or if John were to come up, and he's asking question, this is a discussion between you and John, and we're just talking about it to show people the example, okay? So, hi, how you doing?
Nice, thank you.
Good. My name is John, and I see you have these flyers, yes, about God and stuff like that. Do you know, like, religion causes a lot of evil on the world? Like, you heard of ISIS and stuff, right? You see what they do? Yeah, in Iraq and, in Afghanistan. And, religion has been the root all of evil. Do you agree to that or no?
No, I don't really agree.
You don't agree to that? So have you not been watching the news or what?
I've watched the news, but I believe ISIS is misinterpreting the principles of Islam.
But are you saying your interpreting is better?
I'm saying my interpretation is based on what the religion says.
Yeah, but how do you know that? Because that's what they say. They say their interpretation is the right interpretation.
Well, I could find examples from other religions
No, I'm not saying. I'm just saying we're just talking about Islam in question,
Okay,
right?
sure.
We're not. Yeah, I understand. I'm sure there's bad Christians and mass Buddhists, and I understand that.
Atheists as well.
But I'm just saying the connotation is that religions are the cause of evil. So, are you a practicing Muslim? Are you someone who
Yes,
prays
I
and
am.
stuff? So, when do you pray?
I pray 5 times a day.
5 times a day. What times are those?
The first one is.
I know I put you on the spot, bro. I'm so sorry. I'm just giving an example. It's not you. Wallah, you're doing a good job.
Yeah, sure.
So please forgive me. Yeah, I really apologize. Yes. So when do you pray?
The first prayer is at Fajr. dawn.
Fajr.
Yeah.
Fajr. What time is Fajr?
Well, it depends on the season.
Okay.
And,
Oh, so
but
it's
it's
different
at dawn.
times.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then what else do you pray?
I pray at Dhuhr,
Dhuhr.
which is when the sun is at
The sun is on.
highest point.
Okay. Okay.
And then there's the afternoon prayer
Okay.
and the sunset one
Yeah.
and the night one
Oh wow.
when all the light is
Very
out.
devout guy, man. I don't think I have it in me. But here's one question: could you pray at the end of the night all together?
No, you wouldn't because we weren't ordered to do it that way. And
Yeah.
we were told that.
But wouldn't it
every
be
prayer-
easier for you?
Hmm?
Wouldn't it be easier? You just get it done at the end of the night.
Well, it would be easier, but that's not the way we were ordered to do it.
Okay. I have one last question.
Yeah.
You know, when you are praying, I seen some guys in the university. They go to the washroom and the sink is really dirty. By the way, all the water is everywhere. But they're doing this like weird stuff and they're putting it all over their hands. And one guy even saw his shoes, like he was at his feet inside the thing. I'm like, what is he doing? What do you guys do? Why do you guys do this? Is
Well,
all Muslims do that?
Yes, we all do it. We don't all do it in the public bathrooms, but we all do it at some point before
Okay.
we pray.
Okay, but why do you do that?
So it's called wudu. So it's the
What it's called? What?
wudu.
Wudu. Okay. Okay.
It's,
What does that mean?
It's a ritual cleansing that we do before we can enter into a state of prayer.
But I have a question. Don't you guys like take showers and stuff? Okay, I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop. Okay, that's that bad. I take that back. Sorry. I'm just saying. Okay, Jazakallah khair. Have a seat. Yeah. Jazakallah khair. Thank you. May Allah bless you, brother. Assalamu alaikum. Sorry. Assalamu alaikum. Please forgive me. Yeah. I love you for the sake of Allah. Yeah. Please forgive me. Okay. Here's the point. Please forgive me, brother. Yeah. In front of everybody, I please if I said anything wrong. So, people will come with lots of uncomfortable questions. Why do Muslims do this? Why they do that? Why do Muslim women cover? All of these uncomfortable questions we get all the time. Do we have answers to every question? Of course we do. He, mashallah, was giving me. Okay? But here's what I want you to understand. Why the dawah doesn't work. Why does it fail? Okay? We have all of this in your notes, by the way. If you don't have them, we can email you the notes. If you don't, take a picture and keep it in your phone. You need to ask yourself a question. This is something you should be doing when you're giving dawah. You should ask yourself, are you satisfied with the answer you're giving? That's what we need to ask in the dawah. It's not related to you. I do the same thing. Sometimes I get trapped in this questioning. So it's not just, oh my God, you don't know. Yeah, and me too. Wallahi, it's happened to me. Like, do you know how I got involved with dawah? The guy said the Muslims are taught to lie. Tukiya. I didn't know what that meant even. And I was so upset about this from this Christian missionary at work that I went to a sheikh and, like that's what led me into learning about all of this. Anyway, so the question you need to ask yourself, are you satisfied with the answer you're giving? Number two, in this discussion, who was leading the discussion? I was leading the discussion. If you want to learn someone who is a great da'iyah, is Sheikh Uthman. Wallahi, he leads the discussion. He does not move to the next point. The kuffars will do this to you. The disbelievers will keep jumping around. Well, what about cutting hands? What about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? And they'll keep jumping all over the place. Your job, if you're talking about this leave, talk about that leave, and then we'll talk about where we go next. Okay, so what was the discussion about with me and this brother? What was it about? What was it about? I mean, really, if I learned everything about wudu today, Will I go to Jannah or will I go to Nar if I don't become a Muslim? Let's say I've happened this conversation. I learned everything about wudu. I learned everything about why ISIS is not the right understanding of Islam. And I walk away and I get hit by a truck. Will I go to Jannah? No. So we need to understand what is the discussion about. Okay? Next, what have we achieved? What are we trying to achieve? So what is the goal? What is the goal, by the way? From what we're learning all day. Yes? Being back to Tawheed, that's the goal. Right? Did you get into useless arguments? Wallahi. Every one of us, even including me, sometimes we get into these useless arguments. And I have to remind myself, no, I have to go back to Tawheed. Okay? It's very important to think about this. Did you reach your objective? The objective is to call to Tawheed. That's the objective. Did you water down the religion? I met one brother and he's like, I was giving this dawah training and he's like, oh, the Prophet ﷺ was so loving and he was so peaceful and da-da-da-da. And I'm like, okay, yes, he was the best character, the best khulaq, the best manners. I said, did the Prophet ﷺ go to ghazawat? Means battles, for someone who doesn't know. Did he go to war? And the guy was like cringing. He was like, maybe he did. Wallahi, okay, the Prophet ﷺ went to ghazawat. Why are you watering down Islam? What is Islam? From based on what we talked about today. Islam is a religion of justice, right? And how you deal with Allah, how you deal with Allah's creation, the animals, the planet Earth, the creation, your brothers and sisters of humanity. If you're being just with them, will lead to peace on the planet Earth. Okay? So, sometimes I'll give you my own shubha, because we all have shubhas, right? We all have questions about Islam. I wasn't not prone to not having it. Like I was like, oh my God, I knew everything about Islam. No, I had questions. One thing I knew what I did right in the beginning. I said, no matter what I do, I'm going to learn about Islam, whatever that question is. I'm not going to stop asking until I ask. So here's a question I had for myself. If Islam is a religion of peace, then why did the Prophet ﷺ fight? And why did the Sahabas go to war? Why? So why did they go into war? Can anybody tell us? Yes, brother, in the back. Huh? Well, it is, ultimately we want peace on the earth. That's the goal. But why did the companions go to war? Huh? They were fighting back. I don't know. Okay, maybe. Yes, who else? Yes. Okay. Yes, brother. Salam. Excellent. Excellent. Yes, brother in the back. Yeah, sometimes, yeah. But that wasn't what they were fighting about, by the way. That wasn't what the fight about. Yes, brother. It is unjust, and that's one of the reasons to fight, but that wasn't the core reason. Yes. Yeah. So here's my example, yeah. Look at Umar bin Khattab, may Allah be pleased with him. When he conquered Palestine, what did he say? He said, all the politicians leave. Just leave. We have no problem. No church will be destroyed. No synagogue will be destroyed. No person will get hurt. All we want you to do is just leave. Why did he want them to leave? Because they were restricting people to worship the Creator. They said, if you're restricting people to worship the Creator from the creation, this is problematic. Now, Islam does not teach violence, and that's not what we are upon today. Obviously, we live in a different time world, and we don't do this in the land of the disbelievers. That's not our job. But when they were in those places, when Islam wanted to expand, there were some barriers. And expand doesn't mean that they wanted their lands. Like in the Christian church, for example, they hogged the whole land. They took over their land. They taxed them to 70, 80%, which most of us are doing here in the West, paying 60, 70, 80%. And they controlled people. Islam didn't control, didn't take their land. Islam wanted to freely choose to worship whoever you want. You understand? However, we're teaching that in Islam, there's no violence, there's no fighting. We follow the leader as a Muslim. We follow the emir. We don't take laws in our hand, whether home or abroad. Doesn't matter. It's not what Islam teaches. Islam teaches that I believe personally, wallahi, I don't know if you agree with me or not. I personally believe from my limited knowledge of learning Islam, the Sahabas were not only the most just, they were the most upright when it came to law. They followed the law to the T. They never took law in their own hand. They never broke laws. This is a misnomer we have in the West, or people that are misrepresenting Islam, that Islam is violent. Because Islam does not teach you violence. Islam does not teach you violence. So if a Muslim is breaking the law, he's going against Islam. Okay, so just wanted to so anyway, without a long story short, so that was one of my shubhas. So when I studied, like for example, when Muslims entered into Egypt, what happened? Sheikh can tell us, he's an Egyptian. What happened, Sheikh, when the Muslims entered Egypt? Please. Because it's a beautiful country. Okay, I'll paraphrase, and Sheikh, you can correct me when I'm wrong. When the Muslims were there, the people of Egypt, when the Muslims realized that they entered into Egypt without understanding the proper Sharia, or there was a misunderstanding, they actually left Egypt. And the people in local Egyptians were saying, no, stay, we want you to protect us from the Romans. And the Muslims said, no, we broke our own ethics of Islam. Right, Sheikh? And then what happened? Do you know what happened? For many years, the years that were there, the people that paid jizya, they've returned every single penny. Do you understand? So they weren't there to hog and take over. And same thing with Syria. Whenever the Muslims entered, they entered because first they were called for justice. People were being treated unjustly. So we need to understand Islam in a holistic way. Yes? Obviously, we had leaders that called for that. The point I'm trying to say here, let's give Islam what it is. One time I was in New York, and there was a Christian, what do you call them? Those Arab Christians, what do you call them? Coptic. He's like, oh, the Prophet ﷺ killed so many Jews. When I explained the story to him, he was blown away. He's like, I had no idea. I said, the Prophet ﷺ asked him, what law do you want me to use for what you have done? He said, if I was you, I would use the Mosaic law. Which is what? Eye for an eye. You understand? All I'm just saying is we need to keep Islam in context, in relevant. I'm not saying this is for you need to talk about dawah. I just need you to we don't want to water down Islam. Okay? We want to take Islam as a holistic package. There's worship, there's ibadah, there's muamalat, there's all of these things. We have to take it in context. So, did you lie about Allah and His Messenger? So, once you give people the truth, it will resonate with them. It'll sit well with them. Because when you try to, just play around with Islam and try to water it down and make it nice, this is not the reality. You need to give them the hal. Obviously, as Muslims, we don't live in an Islamic land. This is not our land here. We're here. What are the conditions the scholars say? One of the reasons we can be here is to give dawah. If you're not giving dawah, what are you really doing? I remember one of the mashayikhs that came, and he was giving a talk, and he was saying, based on him, he was explaining, the scholars say that a Muslim can live in a non-Muslim land for certain conditions. One of them is, if you've come here to make some kind of business, that business has to benefit the Muslim ummah. That's one reason. Second reason, if you come here to get an education, that's not for you to become a doctor, lawyer, and engineer. It's to help the Muslim ummah with your education. Number three, if you're coming here, if you're sick and you need some medicine, you want to be healed, that there's no available in your land, you can come here. Number four, if you're coming here if you're coming as a so all of these conditions you have to go back, by the way. Number 4, if you come here for medicine or whatever, you have to get healed and go back. Number 4, sorry, is if your land, something's happened. Like Syria, mashallah, you know, may Allah make it easy for our Syrian brothers, what's happening. And their land's destroyed. So they're looking for refuge, right? As Allah says in the angels say that wasn't the land vast enough for you? Couldn't you travel? So to save their life, it's not allowed. Last and the final, they say that dawah. So if you're here in this land and if you're not giving dawah, what are you really here for? You need to ask yourself that question, just like I need to ask myself. So I've chosen to make dawah my primary job. Obviously, I do other things too, but that's my primary job because that gives me the reason to live here. And if you're not doing that, the scholars say this is problematic. Anyway, so we want to take Islam in a holistic way, yeah? So going back to this example about the tree, when we're looking at lenses, we're looking at the yellow lenses and the green lenses. Depends on our lenses. The discussion will never stop. It will never stop. It'll go one branch, one tree, one leaf, and it'll keep going all over the place. That's why it'll never stop. So why it fails, the endless cycling of question never stops. Always, answers do not satisfy the questioner. Why don't the answers satisfy the questioner? Why doesn't the answer satisfy the questioner? Sorry? Sorry, louder? Yeah, you can say, but the reality is the reason why it's not satisfying the questioner, because he's looking at world from his lenses. Like if someone believes in democracies, wallahi, I don't want to open up a can of worms here. I go to universities and the things that I hear from the younger people, I'm just from the shabab, it's like unbelievable. I had this one sister come up to me in one of the universities in Toronto. She's like, my professor says to me, oh, Islam is very backward for women. It doesn't let them work. There's no progress. I had one guy in Hamilton come up to me and saying, Muslims are really backwards. I said, why do you say that? He goes, I was in in Saudi. You guys take breaks every 4 hours to go pray, right? So he's like, you're counterproductive. So what's the problem with that? Because his lenses are to have success, right? To make more money, to work more. That's his lenses. The girl that I was talking to, the Muslimah, hijabi and all, I asked a simple question. I said, can I ask you a question? What is success for a woman in Islam? That's the question. So what is a success for a Muslim? I can ask the sisters if you want to answer. What's success for a Muslimah in Islam? Is it to be a CEO? Is it to be in a corporate ladder? Is it to become a lawyer, doctor, engineer? So what's success for a woman in Islam? Yes, sister. So please, okay, so what does that look like? Okay, so we give dawah, but what's success? Here's what I'm going to tell you. Go look at the last 1400 years of corpus of Islam and study the greatest human beings in Islam. Who can name some of them? Imam Hanbal, Imam Bukhari, and so on and so forth. Look at the giants, the person who led the army into Fath in modern day Turkey. Look at all of them. You know what you'll find? They had an amazing mother. They all had an amazing mother. A successful woman in Islam is the one who brings righteous children up and makes them the leaders of the community that bring justice to the world. This is an Islamic virtue of success. It's not becoming a CEO or a doctor. Yes, it's not. Nobody's saying it's wrong and don't do it. We're saying is the lenses that the professor is giving that Muslimah, and she's not understanding the foundation. Mashallah. Do you guys understand the point here? Do you guys understand? So this is the problem, right? So all I'm just saying is, what we want to do is we want to give them the right lenses of Islam, which is what? Okay? We don't want to give them the false idea of Islam. Lots of people today are in the worldview of becoming intellectual. And I gave that in the dinner, lunch downstairs. I was telling the brothers. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimullah, he says, If being intellectual was all that amazing, why don't the intellectual people come together and solve the planet Earth's problems? Hey, being smart, you know. Elon Musk is smart, isn't he? Isn't he solving some problems? Isn't he? He got green cars. We have cars that have no gas. He's sending people to the moon. Very successful, isn't he? Isn't he? Is he successful, guys? Come on, tell me. Be honest. I believe he's the most unsuccessful human being. Do you know why? If you cannot find out who your Rabb is, who your creator is, who your sustainer is, who you cherish, you're not successful. I'm sorry. You can call yourself famous and rich. Doesn't mean nothing. In Allah's eyes, he's nothing. So success for us is not that. So the idea in Islam is not being intellectual. So don't get in this, yes, learning the deen is to protect yourself, to get closer to Allah so you can go to Jannah and prevent yourself from nar. This is intellectual. Okay? So the reality is, what is it? Islam in reality is what? It's submission. Because people will tell you, bro, I can prove to you logically. And you can watch some of my videos when I go give dawah, and don't follow me. I'm not saying I do anything positive. But I'll say, what makes your truth truth? Then someone will say, well, I believe this is logical. And then I'll say, what makes your logical logical? Yes? You can't just say, I believe in truth. Well, what's your truth? Oh, you believe in truth? Yeah, I believe in truth. But what makes your truth? What makes our truth truth, brothers, sisters? What makes our truth truth? Yes, brother. What did I say in the beginning? 3 things. Qala Allah, Qala Rasul, and the Sahabas, what they understood. This is our truth. If this is not our universal truth, then what is it? Then it's just intellectual mumbo jumbo. Islam is what? Submission to Allah, whether it makes sense or not. And the brothers, when they leave Islam or they don't understand Islam, they haven't really submitted. Okay? This is why the dawah fails. When we're talking to people, if we're calling them to the Creator, getting them to understand that they need to submit. Okay? Very, very important. Okay? Anyway, so always taking the discussion back to Tawheed. Let's look at Musa alayhi salam. When he went to Pharaoh, what did he say? What did Musa say? Didn't I raise you up? Didn't we do this for you? And what did Musa alayhi salam kept saying? He kept going back to Tawheed. It's the methodology of the Anbiya, of the methodology of the Prophet ﷺ. Many of the letters the Prophet ﷺ wrote, many of the letters that he wrote to Hercules and this one and that one, you know what you find? What does the Prophet ﷺ start with? Bismillah. What does Bismillah mean in Arabic? In the name of Allah. With the name of Allah. Bis, yeah, ba, bis. Many Arabs here, mashallah. So always starting with Tawheed. Did he say first, glorify my grandfather, glorify my culture, starting with the Arabs, starting with the Pakistanis? No. He started with Bismillah. So always going back to Tawheed. Okay? So, I want to give you a little bit of history, what we're going to talk about now. So we have a methodology in IRA, it's called the GORAP. Okay? So how did this methodology, the GORAP, came about? Sheikh Abdurrahim used to go to Hyde Park, which is this place that they give dawah in the park, and there's these debates and there's arguments and they're going back and forth. And Sheikh Abdurrahim is going back and forth. And one Egyptian sheikh came up to me and he says, what are you doing? Just asking. He's like, I'm giving dawah. It was Egyptian too, mashallah. Those Egyptians are everywhere. Hey, they're good mashayikhs. That's why we're here, right? We love you. So here's what I'm saying. So he kept doing this argument. I just want to give you, there's a video that I posted on our IRA Canada's channel. There's some brothers in Saudi, they have 2 dawah organizations, 2. So what they did a survey. They said, let's give dawah. And let's see, there's lots of Filipino and Malaysian sisters that are non-Muslim that live in Saudi. They work as workers, migrant workers and all that. So they did a survey. So one dawah organization called 50 Sisters, and the other dawah organization called 50 Sisters, non-Muslims, to Islam. One of them simply called to Tawheed, going always back to La ilaha illallah. And the other one just talked about shubahats and doubts and questions and answering and debating. Do you know what the outcome was? The brothers that did call to Tawheed, out of the 50, 40 of them accepted Islam. And 10 of them are on the way to becoming Muslim. The other people that just talked about these debates, you know what happened? 49 of them did not accept Islam. Only one sister became Muslim, and she's debating. Still, her heart's not settled. Do you guys understand the point here? Do you guys understand? If you're calling to these kind of arguments, it's not going to get you to your goal. So going back to what the Sheikh, what he was doing, he said, I'm giving da'wah. So the Sheikh told him, try it this way. If you call them to Allah, if they believe in God, then get them to understand if he's one. If they understand that, then explain to them the Quran is from Allah. If they accept that, they accept the Prophet is the Prophet of God. And that's your da'wah. So now, in the beginning, Sheikh Abdul Rahim Green called this the systematic approach. That's what he called it. Eventually, it took on a name. And this is what the name came on. It's called GORAP. God, Oneness, Revelation, and Prophethood. Now, it is not binary that you have to give da'wah this way. Nobody's teaching that. Nobody's saying, oh bro, this is the only way you can give da'wah. Sometimes when I'm speaking to Christian, I go straight to P. Okay, why? Because you know when the Christians give us da'wah, or their batil da'wah, what do they say? What do Christians, anybody here been given da'wah from the missionaries? Yes, what do they say, bro? Yeah, but what do they call, when they come to you, what do they say? Jesus loves you. Who said that? Jesus loves you. Can I ask you a question? Jesus loving me, is that an intellectual argument? No, I'm asking. Is it? What is it? It's a statement, but it's emotional. It's spiritual. Yes. Yeah, that's why we want to get to an objective truth, right? Yeah, it was just to show you one example. Obviously, the right ways. Yeah, it is subjective. Everything is, wallahi, if it's not Islam, it's not Allah and His Messenger, then everything is subjective. If there's no religion, there's no God, everything, even being justice means it's just words. What's justice without God? Tell me. What is it? What is it? Nothing. Do rocks have justice? No. Where did the justice come from? Truth. What is truth? What makes truth truth? Do you guys understand? When we say we believe in the truth, we don't, and this is, the Sahabas understood this very well. Wallahi, if you understand the Prophet ﷺ, what he taught, what he created these people, they were next level. Like sometimes people, new Muslims come up to us and say, bro, what about my, Brother Ali, what about my mom and dad? Are they going to go to hell or heaven? So what do we do as Muslims? No, bro, if they die, they're going to go to hell, right? Isn't that what we say? The next question should be what the Sahabas would say. What would they say? Because one of the Sahabis was asked this question. He goes, if on the day of judgment, I had my mother judging me and Allah judging me, I would choose Allah. Because Allah is Al-Adl, the just. Allah loves me more than anything. Yes? Allah is the most forgiving, the most knowing, the most wise. Do you guys understand that? That question shouldn't even be asked, what's going to happen to my parents? It's an irrelevant question. The question is, what about you and your connection to Allah? The Sahabas understood it. So when they said, I believe in truth, they didn't just make statements, oh, I believe in truth. They said, Allah has spoken the truth. The messenger has spoken the truth. Do you guys understand this point? So when someone says, I believe in Bible and Christianity is true, So what makes Christianity true? I believe in Buddhism and that gives me a practical way of life. No problem. It may give you some 5 or 6 things how to live your life. But what makes Buddhism true? You can't just say it's true. You guys understand this. The Sahabas understood this. They knew the depth of the knowledge. They knew that their connection, they're contingent and dependent on Allah. Anyway, going back to this, God, oneness, revelation, and prophethood. Please, you don't have to do it this way. We say, as long as you're covering one of the steps, then you have done good dawah. If you talked about Allah, it's good dawah. If you explain who Allah is, the Tawheed, oneness, it's good dawah. If you explain what the Quran is, this is good dawah. If you've told them why the Prophet is a prophet, it's good dawah. If you're not discussing these things, then it's not good dawah. That's the prerequisite. So as long as you're doing that, and we will give you the skeleton how to, inshallah, engage that today and tomorrow. So what we want you to take away from is, use it as a map rather than a rigid structure. If you're talking to a Christian, maybe prophethood is what you talk about. Maybe you're talking to, this morning I was giving dawah to a Sikh guy at the hotel we're staying at. I didn't talk about prophethood yet. I went straight to Revelation. Explain to why the Quran is from Allah. Because I know he believes in God and I know he believes in oneness. I had one brother who wanted to marry a Muslimah, hijabi sister, Sikh guy. He's like, well, I believe in God and I believe he's one. What's the difference? I don't know, there's a big difference, bro. There's a big difference. The reason why she won't marry you or her family won't let you marry is because just because you believe in God and you believe in his one doesn't cut it. You have to understand Islam. We take the Prophet as a role model. We take the Quran as Kalam Allah, speech of Allah, and we live Islam. We don't just talk about it. Okay? So anyway, so back to what I'm saying is, use it as a map rather than a rigid structure. Understand the concepts, not the steps. Very important, brother. I'm going to repeat myself. Understand the concepts, not the steps. As long as you're talking one of these elements, then you are understanding the concept. Make it your own. In the beginning, when I used to give dawah, I used to watch some du'ats. They used to wear a certain hat, and they would hold their hands certain like this, and they would put on their pants, and they would be coming up here like this. And I was like, okay, everybody that's laughing knows who it is. And all of a sudden, my dawah became like that. Like, you understand? You're focusing on what the person looks like, or you're focusing on what that person is doing or saying. You need to focus on the concepts. Make it your own words. However you say, you don't have to sound like me. You don't have to sound like Sheikh Uthman or Sheikh Abdul Rahim Green. Make dawah how you want to give dawah, but understand the concepts. Make it your own. Practice, practice, practice. I used to start giving dawah. What I did, any opportunity I find, I would give dawah. I go to the gas station, I'd be pumping gas. The guy next to me, I would start talking about weather. And then the weather would lead into go rap. I would go to the Tim Hortons, I would buy a coffee. And I'd buy the coffee from behind me. And that conversation would lead to, oh, you know why we believe being good to your, people on the planet Earth. We believe there's a creator. He's all good. He's the source of goodness. Al-Bar. So it's good to be good, so I wanted to buy you something. You guys get it. Everything you turning into dawah and is practice, practice, practice. Okay? So, how much time we got left? Not much. Is that right time? 2:35, 2:15, 2:20? Okay. Okay. Good. Okay, what time is Salah, Sheikh? 3:50? 3:30. Okay, inshallah. Okay, so when we're giving dawah, there's two different types of dawah. There is passive dawah and active dawah. What do we mean by passive? Passive dawah is a sister wears a hijab and someone comes to up and said, why are you doing this? So she didn't initiate that conversation. Active dawah is when you are out there or you're in the MSA and you're initiating the conversation. So you're taking the initiative. Excuse me, do you have a purpose of life? What's your goal? Why are we here? So you're starting the discussion. So we need to understand which one that happens to us so we can identify. So let's say, why do you fast 30 times a year? Why do you have a beard? Why do you do this? Why do you do that? These are all these discussions. We want to take those discussions, which are passive coming to us, and we want to turn them into a dawah conversations. The opposite is true as well. If we're reaching out to them, we want to engage. Many lines that we use: what is the purpose of your life? What's your goal? Is life just a game? So on and so forth. And you're initiating those conversations. And that's why you would see with IRA, we have many different campaigns. One of the campaigns is know God, know good. What does that mean? Know Allah and you know what is good. Know God, know good. Another one is called mercy to mankind. And then we talk about why the Prophet ﷺ is a messenger of God. Or we could talk about, is life just a game? So we do these campaigns. We put on these different shirts. We go out there with these pamphlets and we talk about, that's us engaging the conversation. And then we turn them into dawah conversations. Okay? So what we're going to do is we have some time. So I want you to guys, anybody here did boxing, kickboxing, karate, judo, any of that stuff? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So when you go the first day for kickboxing, what's the first thing you're taught? So do you go into the ring first day and you just start knocking the other guy? So what are you taught? Stats. So when I went, for the first week, I was just doing this and this and this. And I'm like, what? Why am I doing this, man? When am I going to get to fight? The point I didn't understand, and then there's this, the bag. I was kicking the bag. I was kicking the bag. I was like 800 times kicking. I'm like, why am I kicking this bag? I don't get it. What's the point of this? What I didn't understand, that by the time I'm done with all of this, inshallah, I'll be like, okay, I'll have so many different moves that are put together that the other person doesn't understand. So when you see a da'iyah, when he's giving da'wah, and he's like going all over the place, like I was talking about the Muslim metaphysician, is his name? The brother. And he's talking about all these concepts, and I'm like, whoa, what is this? But he's linking so many discussions that I'm not able to even grasp, because so in the same thing, what I'm saying, to make it easy for you, when you're giving da'wah, you're talking about multitudes of topics, okay? And you're putting them in there, but the other person doesn't understand them. So here's the example I give. Imagine you had a bag of different tools. You had a hammer, you had a screwdriver, you have a nail, you have all these different tools in your bag. Do you use one tool for every job? Do we? No, we use different tools for different jobs. However, the bag is there, ready for whatever comes my way, right? Okay, I need a hammer. Now I need a screwdriver. So what the goal for this today and tomorrow is to give you a set of tools. Then when someone comes to you with one question, you pull that tool out of your bank or your bag and you discuss it. So the first tool we want to pull out is initiation, okay? So because we want to have the right Islamic ethos, so the first thing is, and this is step by step, we're going to do different steps. So the first step we're going to learn is initiation, okay? So the question is, someone comes to you, why do you have a beard, right? Or someone says to you, why do you wear a hijab? Or you're initiating the conversation, what's the purpose of your life? In that initiation, we want you to have certain ethos. Ethos means how we act. So what I want you to do is first thank the person, right? Ahsan, thank you. Okay, Mumtaz, amazing. Okay, so thank you very much. That's a good question. In order for you to understand these questions, I have to, explain some basics of Islam. Do you have a few moments I could do that? And that's all you're doing in this first exercise of moving your leg back and forth. Okay? You're not giving Allah is one, the Prophet ﷺ from messenger of God, the Quran is from Allah. No. Your first is, I'm going to ask everyone to stand up, pair up in twos, and have a discussion. And I'm just going to come by and listen into what you're doing. All you're doing is this. You're having a discussion. One person is like, okay, I'm an MSA, and there's a person on the other side, and he's, asking about Islam, or you're discussing it, and he says, oh, my name is John, or you're saying, hey, John, thank you very much. That's a very good question. In order to understand this question, I have to explain some few foundations of Islam. Do you have a few minutes? If he says yes, you move forward. So 3 things: thanking the person, explaining foundation, right? And getting a buy-in. Do you have a few minutes? That's it. We're not talking about Allah. We're not talking about oneness. We're not talking about... If you've done that, we've done step 1, and then we'll move to the next step. So please, everybody rise, stand up, pair up in 2s, and I'm going to come around and listen in. I'm not there. Pretend I'm not there, okay? Okay? So, literally 3 minutes. Shouldn't take more than 3 minutes. All right. Shouldn't take more than 1 minute. Wallahi. It should be less than a minute. 3 things: thanking them, getting an agreement for a few minutes, and talking about foundations. Check 1, 2. All right, brothers and sisters, have a seat. All right, Sheikh, 3 more minutes? No, I have 5 more minutes. Sheikh, is that 25? And that one says 30. Which one is correct?
No, it's this one.
That one? Okay. 10 minutes. Okay, excellent. Okay. Jazakallah khair, brothers and sisters, please take a seat. Brothers and sisters, please take a seat. So remember, guys, I know it sounds like ridiculous, but like, why am I doing this? Just keep remembering the boxing. Keep remembering the boxing. This is step 1. There's many steps to come. This is your step 1, okay? Next step is what I want you to understand. Let's do an example, okay? I heard Muslims want to kill babies. Huh? Who said that? Excellent. When they give you a ridiculous question, if they give you a ridiculous question, I heard Muslims want to kill babies. You don't say, thank you very much. That's a very good question. In order to really understand this question, do you have a few minutes? I can explain some foundations. If you were to do that, what does that really mean then? Then this is true. So when they say something ridiculous, Islam teaches violence. No, reject it. Absolutely, Islam does not teach. So, because there's a psychological effect in this, okay? So you have to be careful. I don't want to program you to every answer. You have to do this. Thank you very much. That's a very good question. In order to understand that, I want to explain some foundation. So that means Muslim teaches how to kill babies. That's the foundation you're going to teach me? I don't want to know. So be careful. When they come with some ridiculous question, negate them right away. How about if they say, I just want to know yes and no? I just want to know how many days of the week, yes and no. How many days of the week, yes and no. Yeah, I just want a yes and no. How many days of the week, yes or no? See, you can't answer that. So what I'm saying is, a lot of times reporters do this. Even politicians do this. They put you in this corner, I just want a yes and no. Not every question has yes and no. Humbly say, brother, or whatever. Not every answer has yes and no. Do you have a few minutes? Let me try to talk to you, okay? So what you want to do is, sometimes they do this, they have an agenda. They want a motive. So just have these trigger points to understand where they're coming from, okay? The next part we want to discuss is, when we're talking about da'wah, we want to get an agreement on premise that makes sense of the worldview. So what we want to try to understand, we don't want to know what John thinks. I'm not saying we don't care about John. It's not okay we are like, oh yeah, I don't care. Here's what I'm trying to get at. This is typical. How many people in the MSA here give da'wah? Put your hands up. Okay, you'll see Cynthia came or Michael came, and the brother is there, and the Cynthia is speaking or the Michael speaking, and yeah, you're right, yeah, because you're listening to the person, right? And this conversation, I've seen some of my du'ats that go with us in Toronto, 6 hours. The guy just standing there. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, yeah, I get it. Yeah, no, yeah. What's happening? The guy is leading the conversation, man. 6 hours of discussion. What did you discuss? Nothing. Okay, I was listening to one of the Islamic studies I was doing with one of our mashaykhs. There's an ayah. I have to find this ayah again. I have it on my phone somewhere. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says there's two conditions of a person. Condition one is you're getting closer to Allah. Condition two is you're going further from Allah. There's no middle. There's no like, yeah, one day I will pray. Yeah, one day I will become practicing. No. Either you're striving and struggling to get closer to Allah, or you're moving further away. You need to decide, what am I taking from that? In the da'wah is the same, brothers. In the da'wah is the same. Either you're giving da'wah, or you're getting da'wah. There's no, yeah, I'm going to give him like 4 hours to listen to his stuff, and then maybe at 4 hours later I'll talk about something. No, he's giving you da'wah for 4 hours, man. Is that what you want? So here's why are we saying this? We respect John or Cynthia, whoever it is. It's not that we don't respect them. We want to listen to them. We want to acknowledge what they have to say, but we want to, yes, Jazakallah khair. What we want to do is, we want to tell them, in order for something to make sense, they cannot be Ahl al-Hawa. What is Ahl al-Hawa? People of desires. I don't want to know your personal opinions. And I'm not saying I disrespect you. I don't want to know your personal feelings. I respect you. I respect your feelings. I don't want to know about your dreams. Oh, Jesus came to my dream. I'm Christian because Jesus came to me. Yeah? Oh, I'm Buddhist because Buddha, I was sitting under the tree and enlightened me. I don't want to know. I don't want to know your experiences. I'm not saying to be disrespectful. I'm trying to show you, and where we get this from. Sheikh Abdurrahim Green one time was giving dawah to a Hindu brother, and he's talking about God, and Sheikh Abdurrahim was talking about God. And this conversation is going back and forth. So 45 minutes later, from what I remember him telling, 45 minutes later, the Hindu brother says, yeah, I believe in God like you believe in God. I believe God is pink. I think he has 16 arms and he has a purple tongue. We're using the same words, are we not? God, God. But why do we have two different worldviews of God? Because he's got his own lenses. You get what I'm saying? So here's what we're saying. We respect people's feelings. We care about their experience. We don't want to negate their experience. I say to Christians, When they come to you and say, Jesus came to me, I don't say, oh, you're an idiot, man. You don't know, what are you talking about? I want to use that, because if you negate someone's experience, what are you doing? Huh? Sorry, I can't hear you. Yeah, because you're rejecting the person. He had an experience. We're not negating that experience. What we're saying is we want to direct that experience to Tawheed. Like if Jesus, let's say a man with a beard came to someone, if he's a Muslim, what's he going to think? He's the Prophet ﷺ. Maybe he doesn't know, but that's what he's going to think, yeah? If it came to a Jew, what would he think? It's Moses. If it came to a Christian, he's going to think it's Jesus. So it can become subjective. What we're saying is, we want to get to an objective truth. We can't say, oh, my parents know better. We shouldn't be Muslim because my mom and dad are Muslim. We should be Muslim because Islam is true. So what we're trying to show here, brothers and sisters, these are the 4 things that you're going to see. People will always revert back to one of these 4. You've discussed, like, okay, straight up, I'll tell you. This morning I was giving dawah to the Sikh brother in my hotel. You can come. He's working there today. I'm going to go talk to him when I'm done. You know what he reverted back to? When I gave him the logical discussions of why Quran is from Allah, you know what he came back to? Oh, I love Guru Granth and I can't let it go. This is my feeling. I feel for Guru Granth. So what did he go? He went back to his feelings, right? So I already give him the logical argument. Yeah, I'm done. I give him the logical argument. Now I need to speak to him through feelings. Okay, the Prophet ﷺ is like this. All I'm saying is just keep that in your mind. People are people. One of the things the Shaykh explained, Ahl al-Fitra, the people, not Ahl al-Fitra, the Fitra, inside human beings are human beings. They're not robots. They're not 2 + 2, 4 is equal 4. They're not mechanical beings. Yes? They have a feeling. What is a human being made of? And this is the last thing. What are human beings made of? A qalb. What's a qalb? A heart. A nafs. What is a nafs? Right? Qalb, nafs. What do we have? An aql. Yes, we have an intellect. And we have a what? A ruh. And we have many other things. As a human beings, we're not intellectual robots. Okay, I'm going to stop here because we want to remember this as a human being. Okay, so we're going to go pray Asr right now. Inshallah, we'll come back and we want to cover a few more very important parts, brothers and sisters. So please, right away after Salah, let's start back, inshallah.